I hate my internet. I hate my internet. I hate my internet. I hate my internet. It sucks so bad. That is one thing that I am going to complain about forever until AT&T gets off their rear end and runs a line up this road. I hate my internet. But I even ran it through my hotspot on my phone and it still freaking froze. You kidding me? Man, yes. I went from happy jolly to like intensely mad just because of that stupid Wi-Fi thing. So it's okay. It's okay. I'm in a happy place. I love talking to you guys. So we were talking about Christmas and giving and all that stuff. I want to do something different real quick. So you actually gave me the idea, W highlights. He said West Virginia 10-2 next year, um, going to the Cheez-It Bowl. I like the 10-2, but I think if we go 10-2, it's going to be. Did you hack your daddy's account? Because I see your dad, and you're saying you're Blaine. I see you. I see you. I see you. Dade says y'all don't have Comcast up there. No, I don't think so. I think that's a little more. I don't know if it's north or west, but it's not here. We have AT&T Spectrum and some other stuff, but the problem is I live on this back road where there's not a lot of population, and they don't think it's worth their time and effort and money to run a lineup here. So yeah, terrible internet. We have satellite internet. Yeah, people that have satellite internet know this is terrible. Sea Dog says AT&T Wi-Fi sucks. It does, but trust me, it is better than satellite. Like horrible. To be honest with you, I am thankful that I'm able to do a live stream through satellite. Right now, I'm running through a hotspot because I had some issues the other night. But right now, I'm using a hotspot. But usually satellite, it is tough. I mean, whenever I upload a video, I use my data on my phone because I have unlimited data and it uploads fast, it shoots clear, so that's fine. The problem that I have is doing live shows. So right now the only way I can figure doing it is through a hotspot. So if y'all have any other ideas, I am all ears because this satellite crap is nuts. I hate it. Date says AT&T is horrible, bro, even down here in Miami. I mean, it's not great. I have to agree with you there. Jeff Smith says, "Yo, Merry Christmas, bro. What's going on, man? Thanks for dropping by. We're having a good time over here." Dade says, "Ah, man, that's tough." You feel me, man? But it's me, Blaine. I am borrowing his phone. See, I knew it. I knew it was you, Blaine. I knew it. I knew it. On your daddy's account, but that's okay because you're watching Golden Blue Dude, so that's a plus. I try not to say bad stuff, so you're good to go. Sometimes I get a little angry. I've let a cuss word rip here and there, but not very much. I don't really get all that wound up on stuff. I get aggravated and mad, but for the most part, I'm kid friendly. But I don't like to market I don't market it as kid friendly because they bottleneck you if you do that. So tell who are you saying tell them you said hey? I know it's you, Blaine. Are you saying tell them hey, or my audience hey, or your parents hey, or who am I telling hey? That's all I'm asking, Blaine. Who am I telling hey to? Let me know and I'll do it. No problem. Dane says, what company is the hotspot with? AT&T. Yeah, you got me. And that was my alarm. But anyways, so getting back to what WVU highlights said. Prediction for next year: West Virginia 10-2 next year. So I want to hear about your team, whoever your team is, what bowl you're supposed to be in this year, and what you see coming next year. Because I have some projections on my own, but I never know who exactly is watching, like what team you rep. Jeff says, who you think is going to win the national championship? That's a great question. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Alabama and Clemson. The question is, will Alabama's defense play like they did against Florida or like they did in the season? I like to take the whole picture. So I'm inclined to think that what we saw during the season is more of Alabama, and maybe I'm not going to say they weren't playing 100% or their A game against Florida, but Florida did expose some things, but Nick Saban is good at fixing those problems. And then we have Clemson, who without Trevor Lawrence looked shaky, but they were also without some key linebackers on their defense. And that's, I got you, Blaine. And that's why I think Clemson lost. I don't think it was Trevor Lawrence, because if you go back to that Notre Dame game, Uiagalelei did fine. He threw for over 400 yards. I don't think he threw an interception. I have to go back and double check that. I don't think he threw an interception. And, they still scored, over 40 points, over 30 in regulation. So it wasn't their offense, it was their defense. Fast forward to the ACC championship, and, they got those linebackers back in those key positions, and they just flat out destroyed Notre Dame. So that is a very tough thing to pick. Dadgummit, I sprayed it that time. I try not to spray it. I try to say it. That time I sprayed it. My apologies, guys. It's what happens when you get excited. Anyways, so Clemson showed some dominance in the ACC championship, and Alabama showed some, I guess you could call it, weakness in the SEC championship. So I'm not worried about those first games. I think Alabama will take care of Notre Dame, no problems. And I think Clemson will take care of Ohio State, no problems. Just that defense is the defensive matchup. Alabama's offense might be the best in the nation. Clemson's offense might be the second best in the nation. So I think that those are the top two offenses. And then their defense is probably their weakest point, but it's not weak. So I'm going to go with who is catching fire as of late, and that would be Clemson. Now, I still got to see how good they play against Ohio State, but I'm going to stick with who's catching. I know Alabama's undefeated, but they had a little bit of a shaky game against Florida, and Clemson has just caught fire. So I'm going to go with who has the heat behind them right now, and that's Clemson, but by no more than a touchdown. I don't think it'll be a blowout like we saw a couple years ago. I think it'll be more like the first two matchups where Alabama won by 5 and then Clemson won by 4. I think that's the way it goes. But that's going to be a good game. Clemson defense looks legit. And Blaine, I will tell Mamie and everybody else that you said hey. Highlight says Alabama easy. I mean, I can't disagree with you, Alabama, but I don't know about easy. W highlights 30, West Virginia 31, Army 24. That's a good. I like that score prediction. As long as our defense stays disciplined and stays in the gaps, because we are playing an offense that we're not used to seeing. Army is that dreaded triple option offense. When it's on, it's on. When it's off, you're good. So if we can run the ball, control the clock, get Army into 3 and outs, wear them out, we're good. It's just we have to stay gap sound. And I learned that phrase from Dabo Swinney because before this last coaching change, Georgia Tech ran the triple option, and every year Dabo Swinney, right before the Georgia Tech game, he said we had to stay gap sound. So I'm saying the same thing at West Virginia. We have to stay gap sound. I looked at Army's roster. They have 5 legitimate people that can run the ball. I'm talking averaging at least 4.5 yards per carry, and that's on the low end. Some of these cats are averaging 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5 yards a carry. So you have the quarterback, you have the dive, you have the sweep, you have the pitch. There's like 4 things you have to cover. If your linebacker stays in his assigned gap, you're fine. Just don't fall for the eye candy. Stay with your guy. Man defense is the best, and as long as you stay with your man and then get help whenever it's decided, is he keeping it? Is the quarterback keeping it? Is he pitching it? Or is he throwing it? Once you figure that out, then you can help your guy. But I think man defense is the best bet for West Virginia against the triple option. Dane says, Canes, Cheez-It Bowl. I'm hoping we can beat Oklahoma State. And as far as next year, all honestly, if we don't make a change at DC, it's going to be a long year. I agree with that. Like I said, Dade, I don't know if you looked at my recent video about bowl predictions. Go check it out when you have a chance. I specifically mentioned the Cheez-It Bowl. I have a prediction in that. Check it out whenever you can. Blaine says, and Merry Christmas. Of course, Merry Christmas to you. And we will see you tomorrow to do the Dirty Santa thing. We are all pumped and looking forward to that. Yes, the day after Christmas, we do Dirty Santa. New tradition. Suck it, everybody. Just kidding. Jeff says, what do you think about Rutgers next year? You know what? If they don't lose a lot of people, Rutgers could be – I mean, they still – the problem with Rutgers, besides a losing tradition, is they have to deal with Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, who's up and down, and Michigan, who's up and down. But the main contenders, Ohio State, Penn State. Penn State is not going to look like they did every year. So you will have to contend with Ohio State and Penn State. So as far as next year, I think a good year for Rutgers next year, if it's a full season, I'm going to say 6-5, you get to a bowl. That would be a good year for Rutgers. And that's not saying that Rutgers will be bad. It's just that the Big Ten is very top-loaded, and it depends on who you get from the West. If you get, like Wisconsin or whoever's hot next year, that could play a factor. So maybe if Rutgers gets an easier schedule, you could go 7-4, maybe 8-3. But I think your best bet would be 6-5 bowl game. There you go. Dade says Alabama versus Clemson for round 19. It seems like we're getting up. It's at least round 5 or 6, at least, because you have to count the first round of the playoffs a couple years ago. So 1, 2. There's 3 national championships they played together. One more. Dude, it might only be round 5. Somebody go check that out. Okay, so it was Clemson, Alabama, then the rematch, and then the Clemson lost in the first. I think it's round 4 or 5. Man, I got myself all confused now. Scott says, are you surprised Baylor got rid of their offensive coordinator and passing game coach after year 1? Yes, super surprised. That's like abandoning ship right off the bat. What the heck? I know it didn't look all that great, but guys, you have to give them time. I mean, if they don't, even if it's bad in year 1, you have to at least give them year 2 to see where they go. You can't judge it on the first year. That's like Neil Brown. Last year, he was left with crap from Dana Holgorsen. So we saw what he did from last year to this year, way better. The record wasn't what we wanted, but all but one of those games, we were competitive even in the loss, and 2 of those games came down to 1 play. So we took a massive step forward. So for Baylor, they needed to do the same thing. I know things did not look good this year, but you have to see how you look the next year before you can make a firing decision. You can't make a firing decision based on year 1 because you never know what you're throwing away. You have to see the trajectory. It's not a year thing. It's not a year picture. It's a trajectory picture. Are you going to go up? Are you staying the same? Or are you going down? So if they would have kept him and it would have stayed the same, then yes, you fire him. He's not making any progress. Of course, if he's going down, yes, you fire him. But if the trajectory starts going up, then you have something cooking, and maybe you can figure out other, less key coaching positions, maybe, safeties position, defensive line, stuff like that you can tweak, or recruiting, whatever. Firing a dude after year 1, I do not agree with. That is not a good look for Baylor. I'm sorry, it's not. Oh, man, I got backed up just a tad. Give me a second, guys. WU highlights. So I'm guessing that you like West Virginia football better than West Virginia basketball. No, I like them equally. I've actually started to cover West Virginia basketball. I've had a little bit of a gap after the Kansas game. That one kind of ticked me off a little bit because we only played 1 half. I have no idea what happened in the second half. Number 1, our shooting cooled way off. And number 2, our legs just gave out for whatever reason. Our conditioning in the second half in that Kansas game was not there. We wore ourselves out, and I know we're better than that. So I'm not going to jump to conclusions off that Kansas game. But to answer your question, equal. Love them both massively. Blaine gave me a like. Thank you. Ronnie is endorsing me. Hit the like. Appreciate it. And you just now subscribed, Blaine? Seriously? I thought you've been subscribed. Well, better late than never. Scott says, if Baylor could fix the offense, they could get 6 games next year, considering the defense should be strong. I 100% agree. Even this year, their issue was their defense. No, their offense. My bad. Their offense. Same thing with West Virginia. Our issue wasn't as big as Baylor's, but it was we were in the same boat. We had a very strong defense, and we still do. But our offense, it came along throughout the year, but still not exactly where we would like to see it. Ronnie says, imagine Rutgers better than Nebraska in college football next year, LOL. You say LOL, but that is extremely possible. Scott Frost, I mean, I like to give him the benefit of a doubt because I know that he's a Nebraska alum. I know he bleeds Nebraska red, and he wants that team to do well. He wants that program to do well. He wants Big Red to be back. I think college football needs Big Red to be back. But daggum, it's looking like Nebraska and Rutgers are headed in opposite directions. It's crazy. I think Rutgers had a better record than them this year, to be honest with you. I'll have to double check on that, but I'm pretty sure Rutgers had a better record than Nebraska. As far as next year, if there's no improvement like we've seen over the past 2 years with Scott Frost, who's to say? Rutgers probably will have a better record than Nebraska. And that, that's weird to say, but, we live in weird times. Dade says, talking to Scott, we did the same with our OC. QBC got rid of him after 1 year, but it was for the better. Yeah, sometimes, I guess sometimes it happens. But it depends on if you have something lined up, if you have a plan B that can work better. If you're going off what you just saw, then I would recommend giving them at least another year. But if you have a backup plan and that plan will or could work better, that's up to you. Now, for Dade's team, Dade, what's your team again? I forgot. Let me know what your team again. So that way I can get the picture going on. But for Dade's team, obviously it works out. Sometimes it does. It depends on what you have, coming in behind it. We'll see. Jeff Smith, Canes. You said that earlier. I knew that, man. My bad. Blaine, doubt Rutgers better. It's not that Rutgers is going to be good. It's how bad Nebraska is. Nebraska is in a downward spiral right now. Like I don't even know how to explain it. I thought they were going to take a step forward this year, and maybe it was COVID. Maybe I should give them the benefit of the doubt because of COVID, but I haven't seen anything under Scott Frost to tell me that Nebraska is on the way back. So I'll give him 1 more year, and if he doesn't do something this year, then Nebraska needs to do something. I know that's not very long time, but it's bad. It is bad in Lincoln right now. Jeff says, which group of 5 team do you think looks legit next year? That is a good question. I like it. Let me stew on that throughout this live interview. I'm going to give you an answer, but I'm going to have to think through my thoughts on that one. Scott says, I admit I am surprised too about Baylor offensive coordinator and passing game coordinator, but I heard there was arguments between both coaches during the games this year on what play to run. That makes that actually makes sense. If there's miscommunication or there's butting of heads or insubordination, then yeah, you have to clean that up immediately, because a toxic atmosphere is going to make everybody do poorly. Even if you have high caliber talent, a toxic atmosphere is a game killer. I did not know that. That is good, very good information, Scott. Thank you. Blaine says Nebraska way better than me. I don't know, man. You might want to go back and look at the Big Ten standings and look at how bad Nebraska got blown out on their losses, man. I know Rutgers, the name rings, loser, 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 because they have a losing tradition. Except for in the beginning of football, they reigned supreme, but that was like 100 years ago. But right now, when you hear Rutgers, you're like, if they don't finish last, then they did good. But they had a few good years in the Big East and gave West Virginia a couple of scares whenever the Big East was in its heyday, right before it's collapsed. And we went to the Big 12. Man, is there anybody out there that thinks that West Virginia in the Big 12 makes sense? If so, tell me why. I'm a West Virginia fan, and I'll tell you right now, it doesn't make sense. Get you out a map of the United States and stick you in pins of where each school is in the Big 12, or Google it. It should have you that. You have the Big 12 cluster like right here, and then way over here, West Virginia. It makes no sense. I hate it. West Virginia highlights. Okay, so this is for next year. I like this. Here we go. Oklahoma 11-1. Hopefully that loss is to West Virginia. Baylor 4-8. Texas Tech 5-7, Iowa State 9-3. I don't know about that 9-3, bud. I think it'll be a little bit lower next year. I think this was Iowa State's chance to win the Big 12, and they had a pretty good year. But next year, I'm thinking maybe 6 or 7 wins at the best. Kansas 2-10. That's being generous. Kansas State 8-4. I actually like that. That's a good prediction, bud. West Virginia 10-2. Of course, I'll agree with that. TCU 6-6. Texas 8-4, Oklahoma State 9-3. The two that I don't agree with you on, Iowa State and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, they were highly touted in their offense this year, and it just did not come together. Chuba Hubbard will be gone. That defense will not be as good. Their schedule not as favorable. I think Oklahoma State could have a losing record next year. I'm telling you, Oklahoma State could have a losing record, and then it's bye-bye Gundy. They're losing patience over there, because this was supposed to be the golden year. Oklahoma State's like West Virginia, okay? Most of the time they're halfway relevant, but then the stars aligned, and you have this 1 year opening of, winning a conference championship, possibly sneaking into the playoffs. This was that year where the stars were supposed to have aligned. I know COVID, all that stuff, but if you go preseason, he had issues with that shirt and whatever, society, whatever. But it didn't happen, and next year is going to be bad. I think they're going to have a losing record, 500 at best, and that will be Gundy's ticket to leave. And I think it's hard to say for Oklahoma State, because I don't know what kind of standard. I think they have a high standard, but it could be lower than I think. So I don't know. I think if Oklahoma State, takes a step that far back, then they really need to think about getting rid of him. WU highlights Big 12 championship, West Virginia versus Oklahoma. As you know, and I would say Oklahoma beats West Virginia, but in the first game, West Virginia how about that? West Virginia upset Oklahoma in the first game, and that gave Oklahoma their one loss. And then in the Big 12 rematch, Oklahoma wins, and wins the Big 12. I'd like it to be the other way, but that makes more sense right now. I don't think West Virginia is right there to win a championship. I think they're there to get there, to compete, to be at the top, but I don't think they're there to win it, especially Spencer Rattler. I think it will be Spencer's last year, but I expect Spencer to take a huge step forward and win the Heisman next year. You heard it here first. Spencer Rattler will win the Heisman barring in any type of injury or whatever. He's going to take a step forward. He looked great this year. He's going to win the Heisman next year. Mark it down. Jeff says West Virginia should be in the ACC. Thank you. Very, very good. I like it. Notre Dame needs to bite the bullet, get in the ACC, and then the ACC can bring in West Virginia with Notre Dame to make the two sides even. And I would prefer that West Virginia be in the same division as like Pitt, Virginia Tech. I know Syracuse is in the other division, but Pitt, Virginia Tech. Well, there you go. Pitt, Virginia Tech. I'm good with those two. I think Miami would be in that too. That would be a good. Well, West Virginia, Miami is not a rivalry, but we did play each other every year. But Miami pretty much owned West Virginia. I'm man enough to admit that. Scott says, sorry, West Virginia highlights. I say Baylor goes 6-6 next year, at least if Baylor fixed offense. Maybe best case 8-4. I can jump on board 6-6. That's a step forward, but 8-4, man. I don't know. You're asking me to take a leap of faith on that one. Jim says for Nebraska to get better, they have to return the Big 12. He's not wrong. I'm not saying that the Big 10 is better, just that Nebraska is not a good fit for the Big 10. That is the comment of the night related to Nebraska. Very good, Jim. I applaud you. Love it. Nebraska needs to go back to the Big 12, and West Virginia needs to go to the ACC. And Jeff says, yo, will Kansas ever be good like for real LMAO? Well, I mean, what year was it? 2005, 2006, whenever they had one loss and won the Orange Bowl? Never say never, man. It's hard to believe, but, you know, go Google it. The last time Kansas had a one-loss season, about 15 years ago. It's not that far, but far enough to not fully remember. It's hard to really, like, man, Kansas, yes, real thing. They competed for the Big 12 championship that year. Crazy. West Virginia Highlights says, no way Baylor goes 8-4. I tend to agree with that, not because I think bad of Baylor, but I think 8-4 is just too big of a step forward for Baylor next year. I made the same mistake with West Virginia this year. Now, I wasn't figuring on COVID and all that stuff, but last year we went 5-6, and I had West Virginia going, 8-4 or 7-3. We went 5-4, but we also didn't have to play Oklahoma. I think we could have picked up those other two wins because they were against bad teams like Florida State and another FCS. So, 7-4, 7-5. I was like one loss off. So I was a little ahead, but close. 8-4. I would say 6-6 or 7-5. I just think 8-4. There's too many good teams. And Baylor's not going to take that big of a jump. They will be better, and I do think Baylor goes to a bowl, but not at 8-4. And Jim says, I agree that West Virginia should not be in the Big 12. They should be in the SEC East instead of Missouri. That's not bad, dude. So Nebraska goes back to the Big 12. Missouri should go back to the Big 12, and West Virginia should be in the SEC East. Man, they'd be in there with Kentucky, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida. Makes sense to me, man. And we wouldn't be in the dreaded West. We'd have to play Georgia, Florida every year and get a team from the West. But I think it's doable. I think we would be much more competitive in the SEC East than we would the Big 12. It's just not, and it does matter, guys. That our closest away game is like over 1,000 miles still. That's crazy. When we were in the Big 12, when we were in the Big East, we could drive to our close. We could drive to most of our opponents. Like Miami was way down there. That was about it. I mean, Syracuse, sure, that's a long drive, but it's still drivable. We played Maryland every year. That's drivable. Pitt, Virginia Tech, Rutgers, Louisville. I mean, all driving distance. Like Big 12, it's just rough, guys. Rough. Dade says, Golden Blue Dude, y'all need to try and recruit more kids from South Florida like y'all used to back in the days. We actually do still have that pipeline. We just had the issue with Vic Koning. So we're in the process of fixing that issue. But I would say having to call defense by committee worked out pretty good for us. But I get what you're saying, and we still have the pipeline, but that situation we had with Vic Koning kind of hurt us a little bit. But yes, I agree. That's where Noel Devine came from, and I think Stedman Bailey as well. I know Steve Slayton came from Pennsylvania, and Pat White, I think he came from Pennsylvania as well. I'm not sure. Um, Mike MC, what's going on, man? Nebraska is still too butthurt over Texas to come back. Well, I mean, Texas does rub people the wrong way, but they are the moneymakers. What can you say, you know? Jeff says, what do you think about Coastal next year? I like that team. I love underdog teams. It's hard to say, man. I mean, it depends on what Jamie Chadwell does. I mean, he's going to be a high commodity, and, you know, he's probably going to take that next step up. Thank you, Dave. Gino. It was Gino, yes. But he's probably going to take that next step up. So you're going back to the group of five thing. Well, first of all, I do think UCF and Memphis will be relevant again. But as far as a team coming from nowhere, Conference USA, I think Western Kentucky is going to be the team that'll come out of Conference USA. I don't think they're going to be like New Year's Six. I think they'll have a couple of losses, but I'll have them Conference USA depending on what happens over the summer. Let's jump over to the MAC. I still like what they're doing over there in Central Michigan. I know they didn't win the MAC, but he's recruiting at a high level for Central Michigan. So I expect Central Michigan to win the MAC next year. Kind of surprised they didn't win it this year. Ball State kind of came out of nowhere. Buffalo looked really good though. Out of the Mountain West, Boise State will be back. That's who I think will be the strongest. I think they had a down year. They got blown out by BYU. BYU is not going to be what they were this year. Zach Wilson will go to the NFL. He can do. So if Zach Wilson were to stay, that would be a bad decision. He needs to go to the NFL this year. Business decision. It's not anything to do with, you know, how loyal you are. That's the best business decision. So that's the Mountain West. We have the Sun Belt. Appalachian State, I think they'll be back next year. They had a one-off, and Coastal Carolina was just the beast. Louisville, I think they lose Levi Lewis, so I don't think they'll be up there. So I expect Appalachian State to win the Sun Belt, Western Kentucky to win Conference USA, Central Michigan to win the MAC, Boise State to win the Mountain West. What's the other? Man, I'm missing one group of five. Who is that group of five? Dadgummit. It's the MAC. The AAC. The AAC. Memphis and UCF. I think they'll get back on top with that. But as far as coming out of nowhere, I don't know. I'm going to do that's a good topic. I'm going to do my research and put out a video on that. But as far as off the top of my head, I'm going to roll with that. I think it'll be between, I'm going to say Memphis and UCF for the AAC. The Sun Belt, I think, goes back to Appalachian State. The MAC goes to Central Michigan, Conference USA to Western Kentucky, and the Mountain West will go to Boise State. And I think out of all those, Boise State will get the New Year's Six bid. I think the name recognition will get their rankings boosted better, and they'll have better competition, so their wins will look better. So I'm saying Boise State will. I know it's not a surprise, shocking prediction, but I think Boise State will grab the New Year's Six next year. So there you go. I'm going to run off here, guys. It's Christmas. I'm going to spend the remainder of my day with my family. I just wanted to jump on here, see how everybody's day was going. Mine went well. I had a little bit of a bump whenever I was driving, because I don't have road rage, but I do have road contentment. So yeah, I get mad when I'm driving. Not gonna lie. Jim says Conference USA, UAB. That's not a bad pick. Sun Belt, Georgia Southern. I actually like that. Mountain West, San Jose State. No, they're going to take a step back, bud. Mac, Northern Illinois. Maybe like 10 years ago, Northern Illinois, Ball State. I think they take a step back. And AAC Tulsa. Tulsa needs to get an offense if they want to win the AAC and compete with Cincinnati, Memphis, and UCF. But I mean, it's not unbelievable, the list. I mean, I like it. It's not bad. I don't. I think the one that I closest agree with would be the Sun Belt, Georgia Southern. I totally skipped over them. I like Georgia Southern too. That's a good pick. Um, W highlights. What do you think of my comment above? Okay. Our losses 2021 to Oklahoma and a close game to Kansas State. That's not bad because I believe the Kansas State game will be on the road and they will be better. That coach that they got from North Dakota State, he's championship breed, so that's not a bad prediction actually. Uh, let's see, Oklahoma State will fall off a cliff. Texas Tech will still be recovering, but we'll get them at home. Baylor, we're good. Kansas, of course. Iowa State, home, and they take a step back. I like it. 2 losses, Oklahoma. Uh, although I would switch Oklahoma with somebody else just so that we get to the Big 12 championship and then we lose to Oklahoma. So I don't know who it would be. Not Oklahoma State, not Texas. Man, that would be tough to pick. Maybe Iowa State in a upset stunner. I don't know. Anyways, I'm done, guys. I'm getting off here, enjoying the rest of my Christmas. Hope y'all had a Merry Christmas. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. I do videos every day. I don't do lives every day, but I do videos every day, and it's a sickness. I'm obsessed with college football and college basketball. So if that's the type of stuff you like, you're going to like this channel. And like my intro says, you don't have to agree with me. You can talk trash with me, or you can talk trash to me. Either way, you're going to have a good time. All my other subscribers do. So join the family. Let's go. And Merry Christmas to everybody. We'll see y'all tomorrow.